It's March Madness, baby. We are here to talk about it all. Adam Gotkin, Adam Avin, we're finally back. We're on spring break, and now we're going to discuss, did the committee get it right? Who's going down and cutting the nets at the end of March? It's going to be exciting.
Can we just listen to this music for a second? It is the greatest thing of all time.
I missed it so much.
I love March Madness. You know what else I love? The Juicer, our own version of March Madness. And, of course, we've got an edition of it today. And it should be a fun one because I'm taking on Nathaniel Cunningham, who is somehow louder than me sometimes.
I don't know if that's true. I've heard you for 4 years. You're pretty loud. But look, the Juicer tournament's not just yet. That's why we're going to continue to break down March Madness and the teams that we think are going all the way. Also handing out some postseason awards as well. Before March Madness gets going, the games of the year, our plays of the week, and a whole lot more. Coming up on No Pulp. Stay with us.
Lane Kiffin is the same old scumbag who takes off for the next best thing again.
I have a man crush, and it's Caleb Wilson, Max. I love this guy.
Solano's in trouble. Hit as he throws. Hangs it up towards the end zone. And it's intercepted! Virginia has done it!
You can never doubt UConn. You can never doubt Gino Auriemma at the end of the day.
I feel like you could have blocked a 6'4" linebacker coming at you while you were.
Call or no! Holloman looks the clock. Half court for the win!
When you got the best player in the country, you can really do anything.
Nobody expected DJ Lagway to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country because last year he wasn't good either.
First time, how are we feeling, Jake?
I'm excited to win the Juicer.
A century of utility is forgotten. The Indiana Hoosiers are the kings of college football.
There's a different vibe in the air, and no, it's not just because it's March, but because the madness is back. And I'm so excited to talk about it. Adam Gotkin, Adam Avin, back with you. No Pulp, just came back from spring break. You were out west. You were in Colorado. How was that?
Oh, it was incredible. Looking at the mountains. But you know the one thing that I didn't like?
What?
The games end at like 10 o'clock.
See?
It's awful.
No basketball till 12, 1 a.m.
I can't wait for it.
We're going to be getting that a little bit. Speaking of which, as we get into March Madness, no team out west has won since 1997. So it's been east all the way, and we're here in Syracuse. Maybe one of the teams near us is going to get going. And speaking of some of the teams that are over here, let's bring up some of the one seeds because one of them is out west this time around in Arizona. But these are the teams on the Mount Rushmore right now. You see the head coach's faces of the rocks there. We got Duke, we got Arizona, we got Michigan, and the Florida Gators. Adam, when we look at these four teams who've kind of been around the one seed conversation for the whole second half of the season, you see their records and their rankings right there. They've been nothing but dominant over the course of the past couple of months, and they're going into March Madness with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I think there was no doubt of who the one seeds were going to be this year. In my mind, there is a top three and then Florida. Florida had to be there because they're the best of the SEC. Yeah. But Duke, Arizona, Michigan, these teams have been dominant all season. All 3 losses or less, all blowing out basically every single team that they play. And, you know, I think that unlike in some past years where maybe there were some more teams that could have been in the conversation, last week, even 2 weeks ago, I think we all knew who it was going to be.
Well, it was interesting because obviously Florida had the fourth one seed, and then if UConn won the Big East, and they could have potentially taken it and knocked Florida down to 2. And honestly, if Florida was a 2 seed, you might be looking at it and going, okay, maybe they have a little bit of an easier path because now UConn is over here with Duke. We're going to get into the whole picture of the bracket later, but it was no doubt in my mind, especially for a large portion of the season, these were the 3 best teams in the country. If you put Michigan at 1 or you put Duke at 1, it didn't matter. But these were the 3 best teams, and Florida fits in there as the fourth one seed. It's going to be a really exciting March Madness with all these 4 leading the way in their respective regions.
Yeah, really ever since the beginning of the season, too, it was these 3 teams, ever since the first week.
All right, so when we talk about these 4, Adam, who do you think has the easiest path to go all the way if you were to pick one?
Yeah, I'm going kind of with the contrarian point from what everyone is saying. I think that Duke actually has the easiest path, and I know what you're saying. Look at the teams in their region. That's all that anyone is saying. Look at the teams. Look at the names. Yeah, it's Kansas, it's St. John's, it's Michigan State, it's UConn. Like, don't get me wrong, good names, but I don't think that those teams this year are necessarily that scary. UConn in particular is the 2 seed. This is not the UConn team from 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is a bad Big East, and UConn was barely skating by week in and week out. They lost to Creighton. They lost to Marquette. That is not a great UConn team. The 4 seed Kansas, I mean, Darren Peterson, in and out all the time. Who knows? St. John's, I mean, they're good. They won the Big East, but how can they shoot? You know, St. John's has their issues.
If you're in a region with St. John's as a 5 seed, what are we talking about?
That's what I'm saying. Overall, there are a lot of holes within every team. So who do you think? Well, who has the hardest?
I'm going to magically change our graphic here because I'm also picking Duke as well.
There you go.
There you go. They're in a different force now with all the tough teams and the coaches they got to play. Let's just think about some of these coaches that are in this region. People that you do not want to see in March Madness. Obviously, John Shire's leading the way for Duke, but outside of him, you got Tom Izzo, Rick Pitino, Bill Self, Dan Hurley. You could even throw Mick Cronin in there, who's feisty, who you might see at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, the coaches are good. We're talking about the teams themselves.
And March Madness, there's always one of the top guys who is leading the way. This region is going to be so exciting because Duke, the 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed, has the hardest path to get there. They have to potentially play. They have to potentially play St. John's or Kansas if they continue on. And I do think that's what's going to happen. We'll get into the bracket talks later. But here, if you look at the total seeding by overall seeds in each bracket, the East region, if you add those numbers up, 1, 6, 9, and 15 equals 31. That is statistically the hardest region in March Madness this year, with the South coming in second and Michigan's Midwest, who I know you're really high on, towards the bottom. So they might have an easy path, but Duke right now, the March Madness committee put that together, and they said, Duke, you were the most rewarding team of this number 1 overall seed all season. We're giving you the hardest path to get there. Not fair. Bad draw.
No matter what, the East Regional in Washington, D.C. is going to be unbelievable. I mean, with potentially being Duke, Michigan State, UConn, Kansas. That might be one of the greatest Sweet 16s we've ever seen. So we talked the 1 seeds. One of the other things you also, of course, have to talk about after the bracket comes out is the bubble. The last team's in, the last team's out. So this is what the bubble ended up being. I'll be honest, I think they got it right. I don't think that it was very controversial this year. I think the fact that there was only 1 team that is not from a power conference kind of had it maybe a little less controversial than years past, because people like to argue about the teams that are not big names.
Sure.
But I think they got it right.
And look, I don't even want to bring the net into it just yet, because I want to point out one specific number that is different from the rest on here. 1 loss. Miami, Ohio, 31 wins and 1 loss. At some point, you need to reward the winners in March Madness, despite them not winning their conference, which, look, it was a close one. They ended up dropping the game in the tournament, right? But 30 wins, that's how you end off your year. I tried doing some research at them like a couple weeks ago, and I had not found a 30-win team in the history of March Madness that never made the tournament. So Miami, Ohio, despite their bad and quite streaky schedule, to be honest, that they played throughout the season, they won the games that mattered, and that's why they're sitting here today, and I like it.
Yeah, it's a interesting argument to keep Miami, Ohio out, which was the schedule was bad. The thing is, Miami, Ohio tried to schedule good teams, but they said, no, we don't want to play you because you're too good. Like, you can't then fault Miami, Ohio when teams are canceling games against them and not playing them. This is a team that is extremely well coached by Travis Steele, a guy who was at Xavier beforehand, so he has the Power 6 experience when he was in the Big East. And they are incredible at shooting threes. It doesn't matter who it is. They can shoot from all over the floor. They play good defense. And you said it, they win. It doesn't matter if they're down by 10 in the second half. They find a way to come back and pick up the victory, which at the end of the day is what's important, and that's what really matters ever. They're the first team in MAC history to go undefeated. The only undefeated season in program history, only undefeated regular season out of anyone in the country. To leave them out would have been a disgrace.
And look, if they win the MAC conference tournament, it is a possibility that they weren't even in one of the first 4 in games. Maybe they get
not at all.
They get an auto bid, they get a regular seed, they don't have to play that extra game. But regardless, when we talk about the bubble as a whole and these 4 teams that ended up playing in it, I think there's one we can make the argument, and I will in a second, but Miami, Ohio, certainly deserving with the win total that they had.
All right, so out of these teams that didn't make it, who do you think should have been in?
Well, look, like we've been talking about, I do think the committee got it right. But if there was one to argue for, I think it's Auburn.
Why? Because you talked to Bruce Pearl when we were in Vegas?
No, not because I met Bruce Pearl when we were in Las Vegas on the TNT set. However, SMU had one of the worst non-conference schedules for a Power 4 team this year. B.J. Edwards as well is not playing for them in March Madness. They kind of lied to the committee.
He'll be out if they beat Miami.
Sure, but they kind of lied to the committee as well and said he was going to be ready to go for this bubble game. But I digress. Auburn, when you look at it, yes, they finished 38th in the net rankings, but they played a really, really hard schedule. 17 quad 1 games. They lost to Houston by 1 point. They beat St. John's in Las Vegas. We were there for. They also beat Arkansas and Florida on the road. Those are 2 really good quality conference wins at a point in the season where both of those teams were finding the grooves. Those were crucial. They also played Arizona, Michigan, Purdue, Tennessee, Bama, and Vanderbilt, just to name a few. And all of those teams are playing in March Madness. Their non-conference schedule is so much harder than SMU's this year, and they did win some of those games. You're not going to win them all.
But they lost too many games.
Exactly.
They only won 3 of their last 12, and they were 7-11 in SEC play. I like the argument that if you are under 500 in your conference, you shouldn't be in the tournament. 4 games below 500, you're not good enough.
And that's what I'm saying. When we talked about all those teams with Miami, Ohio, the wins matter. SMU had a couple more wins despite them having a less tough schedule than Auburn did. So the bubble, the committee got it right. But will Adam Gotkin get it right against Nathaniel Cunningham in the juicer coming up after the break? Stay with us. You don't want to miss it. My jaw dropped. That's a new intro for us at the Juicer. This is exciting. We came back from spring break. Oh, we're so back. We're so ready to talk some more March Madness. We bring in Nathaniel Cunningham. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm excited to see this matchup. He mentioned you guys can get pretty loud. This one's going to be exciting. All right, so Adam, I'm going to start with you here for our 1-point question to kick things off. We've been talking about some of the regions, the top teams that are playing in it, but which one is going to be the most entertaining?
I look at the West region and being one that I think is going to be absolutely fascinating because you have the top 2 seeds as 2 teams that historically lose all the time early in tournaments in Arizona and Purdue. It feels like every single year those teams always get knocked out. Matt Painter cannot win games in March, and neither can Tommy Lloyd. So automatically I look at that and I say, okay, this is going to be fun. And then after that, I look at the higher seeds, and I think you have a High Point team that won 30 games and makes a million threes. Hawaii in their first tournament in 10 years, the Rainbow Warriors, you know that they can have some fun. Look, I think overall there are so many fun storylines. You also have Missouri as the 10 seed playing at home in St. Louis. That's going to be exciting. That's a home game. There are many, many double-digit seeds that I think can win, and your 1 and 2 seeds very susceptible to losing.
Well, you care about the top half of the bracket and not the bottom
well,
half.
I just talked about
You're talking a little bit about the middle, but this is about the entirety of the bracket. Give me the East. This is one of the most stacked brackets from top to bottom. And you talked about it a little bit earlier, Adam. How about the fact that you've got a Hall of Fame coach in Rick Pitino? You've got Mick Cronin in there as well. You got a Hall of Famer in Tom Izzo. There's Hall of Famers up and down this. How about John Shire? He has the most wins of any coach in their first 4 years with 121. But also, let's talk about those not high seeds like you were talking about, Adam. How about UNI? They're the 3rd slowest team in the country.
They also are 6th in their conference. They're not good.
Yes, but they have such an excellent play style when it comes to those early matchups, these low seeds. They create really interesting matchups. You talked about liking the East. Yeah. I'm sorry. The East from top to bottom is more stacked than any other.
No upsets.
Well, look,
no upsets.
We talked about March, and the West region certainly has madness, but when I think of matchups of a Dan Hurley, Mick Cronin potential matchup, when I think Pitino going up against John Shire, maybe we get a Hurley matchup down the line later as well. a rematch of the Big East Championship, to me, I'm going Nate here on the most exciting region. I think that East one is going to be so exciting. All the top teams.
Too good.
All right, Nate, we're going to go to you here for our number 2-point question. We talked about all the double-digit seeds. You guys just mentioned a few, but which one do you think is the most poised to go and make a run in March Madness?
Well, I think there's a lot of these double-digit teams like we talked about that can have so much success, but I think the one that stands out is Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. This is a team that, again, like I mentioned with UNI, they play super slow. They're not traditional, but they also run that 8-man rotation with a lot of guards. And in that first-round matchup against a weak North Carolina team that's missing a lottery pick in Caleb Wilson, this is a team that can use that quickness, that transition play with those guards and then slow it down and not allow UNC to really set up any of their offense. This is a VCU team that I have a lot of faith in. And then if they get past UNC and then they have that second round against the third-seeded Illinois, they can do the same thing because Illinois' offense needs their guards to be successful to open their big play.
I think they'd get out-physicaled by Illinois. Look, I love VCU. I've been to the Siegel Center, grew up a Rams fan.
That's his team.
But Phil Martelli in his first year, I don't think that he's at that level yet. A team that I think is at that level, that's South Florida, coached by Brian Hodgson, who, please change your mind and come to Syracuse, Brian. Look, he has done an incredible job with that South Florida Bulls team. They have two guys who have made over 100 threes this season, in Wes Ennis and Joseph Pinion. These guys are both former high-profile recruits that Hodgson has brought in. Look, this is a team that can score from anywhere. 5 players in double-digit points, and they lead the country in second-chance points. They shoot threes, they get offensive rebounds, and you mentioned how Caleb Wilson's out for North Carolina. Michael Brown, Louisville's lottery pick, also out.
Well, you know what? I don't want to give away anything when we talk about our brackets later, but Nate, I'm sorry, I got to go with Adam here because I do have Brian Hodgson and South Florida advancing past Louisville in the first round.
You just like that because it's a South Florida.
I actually have both of these upsets.
All right, well, look, I'm here, and you're lucky. I'm going with you. Adam Gotkin gets the 2 points here, so don't want to give anything away. But Adam, we talk about some of the players in March. We mentioned Michael Brown. That's a big one for Louisville. He's going to be out, but there has to be some other players who have a lot to prove in March Madness. Who do you got?
I mean, for me, it's the guy who everyone talks about as the number 1 pick, but doesn't ever actually play that much, and that's Darren Peterson. Everyone says he is the next Kobe, the next LeBron, the next insane athlete who's an incredible scorer, just a gifted basketball player. And from what I've seen of Darren Peterson, he is. However, he's already doing the NBA thing where he load manages. Well, now's the point where the load management has to turn to something, and he's got to show up in the tournament. Missed 11 games. The games that he didn't miss, he would sit out in the second half or not play. All of that has to be for something. It's got to be to play in March. He has to show up, because if he doesn't, then it was all for nothing. What, the load management just for him to sit and do nothing? This is a guy who was talked about as the best player in the country, one of the best prospects that we've seen in a long time, and he's got to show up.
But the whole point of having a guy like Darren Peterson sit out is because he wants to get to the NBA. Is March the NBA? Absolutely not. He still has that goal of playing professional basketball, and to be frank, he's still a top 5 pick. On the flip side, you've got a guy in Jaden Bradley in Arizona, the Big 12 Player of the Year, who's not even projected to be in the NBA draft right now. And if he is, he's a late second-round pick. Mind you, he was Big 12 Player of the Year over who is supposed to be a projected top 5 pick in AJ DeBansa. So the fact that you've got a guy out there who's not even the best player on his team, who's probably the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th best player on his team, who's got teammates, 4 of which that are projected to go in the first round, and not him, it's hard for me to sit here and say that this guy that won the Big 12 Player of the Year, you're sitting here and saying doesn't have more to prove than a projected top 5 lottery.
Caleb Love was a conference player of the year at Arizona.
I gotta say that this one is really hard because I do think you guys made great arguments, and I do have Arizona going much farther than I do Kansas. But that being said, because Darren Peterson, the conversation about him this year was that he hasn't showed up. This is the time where he needs to show up.
He's already a pick. He's already guaranteed.
And you know what? He's in the hardest division. He's in the hardest region right now, and he needs to show that he can play against these teams. Adam Gotkin wins the Deucer. I'm sorry, that was a great argument, and I do love Jaden Bradley, and I do love Arizona, but we got to take a look at our Deucer standings because it is March, which means we do have our tournament coming up. Adam Gotkin and I are tied up there. Nathaniel Cunningham, I apologize for that one, my friend. I'm sorry, but that was a great Deucer, one of my favorites ever. But this is where we sit right now. Just Jakolski with that perfect record up at the top. We'll see how the Deucer standings and the tournament shape out in a little bit, but first, we're talking some ball in order. Which teams got the committee right, and which ones will be proven wrong in the tournament? Stay with us.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome. I'm walking in live
Where are we?
TV.
Over
there
here.
you
There
go.
we go.
We're over here. We got all our screens here, which we'll fix for you. We're talking some ball in order. The teams that the committee got right, wrong, where we think that they were seated correctly, if they were too high, too low, Adam. So let's kick things off. First of all, before we get into it, we talked about Miami of Ohio. We talked about some of the teams that were in there. You really believe that the committee got it right there?
Yeah, I do. I think that they got it right in the bubble. But let's talk about some of the other teams that were a little bit higher. And did they get it right on the exact seeding line? Because that's where a lot of the difficulties are sometimes with March Madness of a 4 seed or a 5 seed. I don't know. So first off, Alabama.
Okay.
A little interesting throughout the year because they're not at the level as they were maybe a couple years ago where they were seemingly unstoppable.
Right.
A 4 seed. Where is it?
The 4 seed. Behind you over there. We're using both screens.
What'd you think?
We've never done this before. I think the 4 seed is okay, but for purposes of this, I'm going to say too low. I do think they could have gone higher at seeding because Alabama really did hover in that top 16. They covered in that top 16 all season long. They should be a top 4 seed, but I actually thought that they were a little bit higher. See, they finished 18th in net, okay. They're ranked as the 14th overall seed by the committee. Only one quad 1 loss, though, and a top 3 seed in the SEC for the majority of it, right behind Florida and Arkansas, and had some really, really good quality wins in competition this year. NATO's squad did a really good job, and now they might not have Aiden Holloway, but before even knowing that situation, I really do believe that Alabama was good enough to be a higher seed as opposed to some of those 3 seeds who I think you could have really made the strong argument that could have been completely flip-flopped.
Yeah, look, I think that the committee got it right on just about everything, Tabir, if I'm being completely honest, and you'll see that as we continue to go on. And with Bama, I think that's the case. They are right about that 4 seed in my mind of good, but way too many flaws for them to be a top 3 seed in my mind. So for the next team, Iowa State. This is
we got to
the
watch.
exact definition of a 2 seed in my mind because they started their season incredible. They went on an insane run at the beginning of the season. They were dominating teams. They beat Syracuse by like 30. That was an awful game to watch in person. And then they kind of faltered towards the end, but they never were bad enough where they dropped outside the top 10. Then they were
awesome.
hot towards the end of the season, and so they got right into that 7-8 range, and I think they're the perfect 2 seed, where it's a team that absolutely, if everything goes right, can win the national championship.
100%.
But I'm not looking at it and saying, oh, this is absolutely a team that's going to win the national title, because I think that there's always teams that you say their floor is the Elite 8, and to be honest, I think that's it for Iowa State. I don't necessarily see them winning the national championship.
Interesting.
But I don't see them losing in the first weekend.
No, never.
And I think they're the only 2 seed that I can say there is no chance they lose in the first weekend, other than maybe Houston. But Houston this season has had bad games at a rate that Iowa State has not.
For sure. I will say, we got the chance to see them up close back in Vegas. But just watching them this year, a guy gets injured, a guy comes in. This is maybe, I think, the deepest team in college basketball for the majority of the season. And no matter who's on the floor for them, they're figuring out they're winning games.
TJ Otzelberger's a big guy, too, so he's got the strength.
He's a big guy. What about a coach with a really big personality? Let's move on to St. John's, which I feel like has been one of the talks of the tournament, and obviously through the Big East championship as well. They took it home. They beat Dan Hurley and UConn for the second time this year, and they did it in dominant fashion. Rick Pitino's squad ends up as a 5 seed, Adam, and for me, I'm going with too low again. I think that's way too low for a St. John's team that beat UConn twice and ends up winning their conference tournament. We talk about a team that has also been hovering in that top 15 kind of area all year long, and they finished in the top 10 in the AP poll as well. So everything, all things considered, I know they were the top 5 seed. They're one spot out of the top 4. But you can't tell me that Rick Pitino's squad was what they did. I know the Big East is easier now. It's not getting the same respect in the tournament that the committee once used to give it to. But I still believe they are one of the best teams in college basketball. Do I think they're a 1 seed? No. Even a 2 seed? No. But the team that they beat twice in their conference tournament and won the same amount of games about, including the regular season title for the conference, in UConn as a 2 seed. How are they 3 seeds lower? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, UConn being a 2, St. John's being a 5, I think is a little odd, but...
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's throwing me off.
Yeah, I think that's more of the issue, but the Big East this year was just not good. I mean, other than St. John's and UConn, there's only one other team that made it in, and it's Villanova, and they're just not a very good team. I don't know how they're an 8 seed. I mean, they won enough games, but they're not very good. Kevin Willard, awful person, too. Everyone knows what he did to Maryland. Okay, but either way, this is a St. John's team that just was not as good as last year's team.
Yeah.
Like, I watched last year's team.
They lost a lot of guys, but isn't that what made it so impressive how much they won this year?
Yes, but I don't think that they have a Kadari Richmond this year that can lead them to the success. So
last year they had Kadari Richmond and it didn't give them success.
That's what I'm saying.
But
that's
exactly,
my point.
I don't know. This year with Zubia DeFora, he's playing at an all-pro level. I just think they're playing exceptional basketball right now. And now, again, we talked about momentum leading into March. It's one of the most important things. I think he has it. But look, we got one more team that we got to talk about. And I know it's somewhere close to home for you, Virginia. How do you think they're seated right now? And did the committee get it right?
Yeah, the Who's, I've said it before. I think that the committee got pretty much everything perfect this season. UVA a 3 seed, and I think that's right because of their record, 29-5 in the ACC. They can't be worse than a 3 seed, but the thing is, you watch them play, and they're not a 1 or a 2 seed. Yeah. They played one top 20 team all season in the regular season. That was Duke, and they lost by 26 points.
Yeah.
Other than that, their schedule just was not that difficult. It's as simple as that. Their biggest non-conference game was in Charlotte the same day as the ACC football championship, so it was basically a home game. Look, it's a good UVA team. Ryan Odom has done an incredible job after they had a down year last year, but at the same time, 202 non-conference straight to schedule. They lost to Butler in the non-con, and they just didn't have that many big wins. At the same time, though, their record, very impressive. I mean, you lose five games.
How impressive is the record if you don't have necessarily the quality wins to back it up? And this is where we talk about these big brands in March maybe getting a boost over some of the other more deserving teams like a St. John's, who did win the same amount of games, if not more, and won their conference championship in a dominant way.
Here's the I think
against the 2 seed.
But I think the quality of teams in the ACC compared to the Big East is a lot different this year. The ACC's middle of the pack.
But Duke was still only one of the ranked teams that they played.
Yeah, but the middle of the ACC, your Miamis, your Clemsons, is a lot better than teams like Creighton and Xavier this year.
Sure.
So because of that, I think UVA was all good. Overall, I think that the committee did a pretty good job.
Me too. I just think, at the grand scheme of things, I think there's a couple things where I look at and say, okay, I think these teams could be seated a little bit higher. Give some respect to the big dogs in the dance.
All right, well, when we come back on No Pulp, we'll go through our end of season pre-tournament awards. Our game of the season, player of the season, coach of the season, all of it. You don't want to go anywhere.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Gotkin and Adam Avin still here with you as we continue to talk about this March Madness, everything that's going on right now in the world of college basketball. Adam, obviously, we have the tournament going on, the game starting today, when this show airs for you guys on our CitrusTV YouTube. But also at this time of the year, it's award season. And a lot of these awards for both conferences and nationally have been announced, but obviously our No Pulp Awards mean so much more. So I want to start with one of our favorite ones, which is we talk about our games of the week every single week. But what was your game of this college basketball season? Look at this. We got our nice friends right here.
Game of the year. You don't have to go back too far because it happened less than a week ago. You go to the Big 12 tournament. No, not on the LED glass floor. When they brought in the actual wood floor, and the games got a lot better.
Yeah.
The semifinal game between Iowa State and Arizona. This was insane.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was very close until the end. Jaden Bradley hit a buzzer beater, which you'll see in a little bit. But what made this game so incredible is that it wasn't your modern college basketball game where in the last 3 minutes it's timeout, challenge. Oh my gosh, another timeout.
Replay review for 5 minutes.
They were going back and forth, hitting high quality shot after high quality shot.
Yeah.
And it was quick, and the level of basketball was just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big 12, their commissioner said that they're the second best league in the country behind the NBA. And it almost felt like that a little bit in the conference tournament. And this game was just unbelievable. The shot making was just insane.
Yeah.
Both teams were going back and forth. And both teams kept extending to like a 7 or 8 point lead where it felt like, oh, this might turn into a bit of a blowout. And then right away the other team comes back.
Yeah, they were going back and forth the whole game. And quite honestly, Adam, if Jaden Bradley doesn't hit this game winner, I really believe that Iowa State wins that game. Killian Torrey left with an injury. He comes back in the game. And he gets a standing ovation from the crowd. So excited to see him back on the floor. We talked about one of the deepest teams in college basketball in Iowa State. The crowd travels really well, and that felt like a really, really competitive March Madness tournament-style atmosphere for the Big 12 championship. It was semifinal and in that tournament. And oh boy, did Arizona sneak away with a really good one there.
All right,
that
so
was really exciting.
It was. That's my game of the year. What is your transfer of the year?
Well, I'm going to talk about another guy on one of the top teams, Yaxo Lenneborg at Michigan. Transferred from UAB, is one of the highly sought-after transfers in the portal, and it felt like he was going to be one of those top guys, but he had yet to play for a program like Michigan or a coach like Dusty May. And what does he do? He's an All-American, just casually, a little bit less points per game, rebounds, stuff, but that's because the focus didn't need to be on him as much. The stats go down because he has pieces around him. He's such a focal point on the floor, and yet he does such a good job at creating space for his team. What Dusty May is so good at is creating a strong defensive culture. Averaging a block a game and being so strong on defense while shooting the three ball at such a high level across the floor and scoring in the fashion that he does, not only just scoring the way that he does in terms of the points, but how clutch he is. You see some of the games in the Big Ten tournament as well. Obviously, they end up dropping the final one to Purdue, but what Lenneborg was able to do for the majority of this season in this tournament as well, I'm so excited to see him perform in the biggest stage in March.
He's just an incredible athlete, too. The fact that he was at UAB just feels shocking. That you look at the way that he's built. He's so long and athletic and strong. He is so fun to watch.
People have been comparing him to like a Brandon Ingram type of guy or Anthony Davis type of guy where he's so long he can do everything on the floor, but he's shooting the ball even a little bit better right now than those guys did back in the day. Just super impressive stuff that Lenneborg is doing with Michigan right now. Obviously one of the title favorites for a reason. All right, speaking of one of the transfers of the year, we have coaches that lead all these amazing top teams. Who is your coach of the year?
Yeah, for me, this was a pretty easy one because it's a guy who's done something basically unheard of, and that's make Nebraska basketball good. Fred Hoiberg has done an unbelievable job this season. If they win, they will win their first ever NCAA tournament game.
Wow.
They'd be the last ever Power 4 team to win their first NCAA tournament game. Big Ten Coach of the Year. He leads them to their highest seed in the tournament since 1991. And the way that they started this season was unbelievable. First undefeated non-conference for Nebraska since 1929. They reached their highest ranking in school history. They had the longest winning streak by a Big Ten team in 15 years.
They're pulling like a reverse Syracuse right now. This is crazy.
Yeah, I know, going from great to bad, bad to great.
This is crazy.
But what he has done, especially turning it around after struggling in his first 4 years, now 3 straight 20-win seasons.
Right.
You saw the culture kind of start to shift with Tominaga and how he was bringing the energy to Nebraska. But now what Hoiberg has done this season, just just incredible. I mean, he has become an elite coach. And, you know, that team won the college basketball crown last year. And now they've taken the next step. And I think that Hoiberg, he's going to stay. And he might take that next step again. All right, one more award to go.
All right.
Probably the biggest one.
It's the big one.
Player of the year. Who you
could have made an argument for that guy. You could have made an argument for that guy and for that guy. But I'm going with someone else who is also the freshman of the year, and that guy is Cameron Boozer from the Duke Blue Devils, the guy that we also got to see up close, Adam. And this guy, not only is he so dominant, he was at a high school and a high level, the consensus #1 recruit in the country, takes his talents to Durham, and he's been nothing short of amazing. You talk about the hype that Cooper Flagg had when he was entering college for his one season at Duke, and Cam Boozer is doing exactly that, if not more, leading them to the #1 overall seed. Duke looks more dominant than ever. Caleb Foster gets injured. They have a couple guys in and out of the lineup right now. It doesn't matter because when this guy's on the floor shooting the way that he does and playing with the athleticism that he does, not only is he going to be a top pick in the NBA draft, maybe your Washington Wizards, I know you'd like that, but this is still a guy who right now in college basketball seems like one of the more dominant players that is just unbeatable, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, or the way that he drives through the lane, doing things in terms of efficiency that these big, strong guys who can drive and dunk on everybody haven't done in a long time. Cam Boozer right now, he's my player of the year.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I like how you compared him to Cooper Flagg last year because I think, you know, Flagg was incredible, but Boozer has had to do more of it himself. He doesn't have Colin Knueppel next to him. It is Boozer leading the offense, leading the defense as well. He is an incredible defender. And as you said, he can do it all. He can run the point. He can play in the post. I mean, it hurts me to say that a Duke player is that good, but yeah, you're right. I hope my Washington Wizards get him because he is one of those guys that is just, you know, next level, and you have no doubt that he'll translate to the NBA.
All right, quick recap for you. Game of the year. We got Iowa State and Arizona. I think there were quite a few games. This season was electric, but we go there. For our transfer of the year, we got Yaxel Lenneborg. Was there anybody else who came into mind for that one, or was he? Do you think
everyone nowadays in college basketball transfer of the year?
Transfer portal is just absolutely insane there. Fred Hoiberg, NBA 2K legend, former NBA coach. I always had him replace my head coach in my fantasy drafts on the game. And then we got Cam Boozer there for the Duke Blue Devils. I know you could make so many arguments for other guys there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean there's so many great players, player of the year, so many great freshmen this season in general in college basketball.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to talk about some of those other freshmen who are on these top teams like Cam Boozer when we show you our tournament predictions. Will the Duke Blue Devils go all the way? Which other teams could be chopping down the nets come April? Stay with us.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
All right, we're not going to make you wait any longer. Our brackets are up. It is time to give you the picks. Time to give you maybe the first ever perfect bracket.
This is the big stuff. This is the big stuff right here.
Now, before we actually give you brackets, I feel like we have to explain our philosophy.
Yeah.
I go for the perfect bracket. I'm not trying to win the pool. I'm not going with chalk. I am going for what I think the perfect bracket is going to be. So, yeah, I have some upsets. You know what? Maybe it's not going to work. But I'm going for the perfect bracket.
I have upsets too. I'm just not a lunatic, and I don't think like a 16 seed will beat a 1 seed.
No,
I feel like every year you have some of those teams. But we're going to get through everything right now. I'm so excited.
Let's take a look at your bracket.
Right. Okay, let's take a look. You know what? I was going to come over there, but I want to show you everything. All right, so we got Duke advancing. We got TCU beating Ohio State in the first game on Thursday. TCU has a couple really good quality wins this year. I think that they advance. We got St. John's and Kansas. Darren Peterson face off against Subi Ejiofor. It's going to be a great one. Michigan State. It says Louisville. I think South Florida goes, so that's a mistake. But I do think South Florida wins that game. I think South Florida and Michigan State play. And then we got an upset here. We got the 10 over the 7, the UCF Knights beating the Bruins, and we got UConn. All right, we're going to jump ahead here to the Sweet 16 because this is really what I want to focus on. USF will not continue, so I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We got a 2-3 matchup here between Michigan State and UConn, but this is the one that I want to focus on. You see it on your screen. We got number 5 seed St. John's, too low against the Duke Blue Devils. I love Cam Boozer and what he has done this year. It is so impressive how dominant they were in conference play. But St. John's being 19-1 over their last 20 games, the epitome of efficiency within their own conference as well, defeating UConn twice this year. Once in dominant fashion, and then again, the same way in their conference tournament championship as well. I think when you think of St. John's and Rick Pitino, last year they had a little bit of an early exit to Coach Cal there in the round of 32. I think this time they advanced to the Sweet 16. I don't think they're going to have an issue necessarily beating Kansas in the round of 32. This is going to be their real first test against the Duke Blue Devils. And quite honestly, Adam, I don't know if Duke has really faced a team as high quality as St. John's have. But to be honest with you, that's the one I'm looking out for when we get to the Elite Eight. It's going to be St. John's, UConn. We'll talk about the Final Four in a little bit. What do you got on your side over there?
All right, so my East region, let's take a look at it.
Yep.
Bam, throw it in. So my first round upsets, just a couple. I have TCU beating Ohio State. I mean, 8-9. Who really cares? It's going to toss up. I like South Florida over Louisville, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
Also, it's a homecoming for Brian Hodgson.
Western New York's coming to Buffalo.
Exactly. His dad is going to be there, too. His dad with dementia, who he has not seen.
And no Michael Brown.
Yeah, exactly. No Michael Brown for Louisville. So basically a home game for South Carolina.
Okay.
Now, in addition to those upsets in the first round, my big thing is I think that UCLA is going to be UConn in the second round. I said it before. When Dan Hurley's UConn teams are good, they show you that they're good, and they blow you out. That was not the case this year because I'd walk downstairs to my house, look at the TV, and say, oh my gosh, UConn's up by 5 in the second half. What's going on? It's just not the same team, and I think that UCLA, when healthy, can beat anyone.
Yeah.
That's the thing, if they're healthy. And if they're not, then Mick Cronin's going to have something to complain about. And, he's already going to complain about being in the East region. He's going to have to see the Statue of Liberty twice, so he's going to complain. But Donovan Dent left towards the end of the Big Ten tournament. If he is healthy, then I think that UCLA is going to be just fine. Also, Tyler Bilodeau, a stud, has some injury issues right now. If he's healthy, then it's a different thing. But this UCLA team has been very hot as of late. 3 wins over top 10 teams, Illinois, Nebraska, and Michigan State.
Yeah.
I think that UCLA can get it done.
All right. I don't. I think UCLA loses early on, but that's because I'm banking on them not being necessarily healthy this fast. Even if Donovan Dent does come back, I don't know if he's going to be 100% on it. All right, we're going to move over here to the South region. Quite a few good teams in here as well. This is considered the second toughest region in this year's tournament, but let's start over on your side. Who you got?
To be honest, I don't think that this is that strong of a region overall. Like, I kind of have Houston being, excuse me, sorry. Houston being the best
You're
team.
so unimpressed. You're getting choked up.
I don't
This is ridiculous.
Love it. But Vandy is the big thing that I see in this region. Because Vanderbilt is unbelievable with their guard play. They've got 2 guys who average almost 20 points a game, and that's almost impossible to stop.
Right. Look, I don't disagree. Vanderbilt's a really good team. I don't want to give away my bracket because we're going to get to it in a little bit. However, Florida, before that Vanderbilt loss in the semis of the SEC tournament, won 13 straight games by an average of 20 points. Vanderbilt's a really good team, and I got to talk about the Gators for a second because despite Vanderbilt, that being a potential matchup, and I do have them meeting in the Sweet 16 as well, I do think the Gators are going to be able to do enough to win that game.
All right, enough about Florida. I've stopped coughing. Let me talk about Vandy for a second.
It's Todd Golden and March Madness. What do you want me to say?
Maybe the coughing's back. This Vandy team has those 2 guards that I think are enough. You have Tyler Tanner, who makes threes, and Duke Miles. These
Let
guys,
me tell you, Duke Miles impressed me so much in that SEC tournament. He was amazing.
And Vandy almost beat Florida in the regular season.
Yeah.
That's twice.
You know why they didn't? Because Avin was wearing number 99 in that game because the manager left the jerseys on the bus. How about that? Oh, ridiculous. All right, let's go over to my bracket over here. And quite honestly, Adam, I have a lot of the same. I have Florida. I got Clemson, though. This, again, doesn't really matter because we're going to really be taking a look at the Sweet 16. But we got Vanderbilt, Nebraska, the 4-5 matchup. I do have North Carolina. I think Henry Vesser is good enough as a center for North Carolina to lead that team to the round of 32. I don't think Illinois is that good. I really don't think, despite them having Andres Yakovich this year, they're that good of a team. I think North Carolina advances and faces Houston. To me, that one won't really be of a matchup. That's why I have a rematch of the national championship game in my Elite Eight between Florida and Houston. Look, I talked about the Gators already and what they did so far this year. They're the best team in the SEC by far. They beat a really talented Kentucky team besides their struggles this year dominantly through 3 games, 3 consecutive times. Kentucky didn't lead for a single minute, a single second in any of those 3 matchups against the Gators. And look, I know they all, and by the way, they beat Arkansas by 40 points too, and Alabama and all those other teams. Vanderbilt was really the only team that they struggled against, which to me was quite surprising. But when you look at this year's Florida team compared to last year's Florida team, this is why I still have the belief in them, is because they're doing things at the same exact level that the Gators did last year. Look, they don't have a Walter Clayton, who might be one of the most clutchest players in March Madness history. Xavier Lee certainly is not Walter Clayton, but they have the bigs. Alex Condon, Thomas Houck, and Ruben Chinleu, who is the defensive player of the year in college basketball. I think their interior is enough to compete against a team like Vanderbilt if they play them again.
Also, grew up a Florida fan. Both your parents went to Florida.
Unbiased. Completely unbiased.
Sure. Totally unbiased.
All right,
your West region.
All right, my West region. We talked about some of the teams. Nathaniel brought up Arizona earlier. Love them as well. I got them going all the way to the Elite Eight. I have a Villanova over Utah State, 8-9 here. I know you're not a big Kevin Muller fan. Wisconsin, Arkansas. I think that might be one of the best matchups in the whole tournament if it happens. The 4-5. I know a lot of people are high on High Point. Everybody loves a 12-5 upset. I don't see it happening. BYU, AJ DeBonsa taking on Graham Ike and Gonzaga, a 30-win team as a 3 seed. I think they advance and face against a Purdue team who is going to beat Missouri. Let's talk about that Arizona-Wisconsin matchup, Adam. The Arizona Wildcats, who you can put them in the same group as Iowa State, a team which they beat in the semis of the Big 12 tournament, and just how much of a complete team they are with Jaden Bradley across the floor. When we talk about the West region, I do think it's chalk. You see all the top teams. I have a 1, 2, 3, 5 in the Sweet 16 with Arizona and Purdue playing the Big Ten champs as well. But I just think Arizona, when we talk about being such a complete team, they always make the right play. After every game, I feel like Tommy Lloyd has nothing to say. He has nothing to critique his team about because they're always constantly winning and making the best play effort out there on the court. Jaden Bradley is certainly the face of the team right now and what he's done throughout their Big 12 tournament and going on winning that championship. I just think right now that they're doing really impressive stuff. That's why I got that matchup in my Elite Eight. What about you?
Yeah, you have chalk here. I don't. I think that this is a region of chaos. Yeah.
All right, let's see it.
Just look at that. Insane.
Okay.
5, 6,
7.
Oh, gosh. But look, I think you look at this BYU team with DeBonsa and Rob Wright. Those two guys, I think.
But Rob Wright's been disappointing this year, by the way.
A little bit, but I think those guys can take them to the Elite Eight because, I said this before, Arizona and Purdue, excuse me, my goodness.
Well,
these teams are so unbelievably fraudulent. They always lose in March. I mean, Arizona and Purdue always find a way to lose games, and I think that the teams that they play are very exciting. Miami with Jay Lucas have been so good all season, very underrated in the ACC. And I got to talk about Wisconsin when I have them going this far.
Yeah.
Because this is a Badgers team that has 4 wins over AP top 10 teams. 9 quad 1 wins. They make threes. They've been very hot as of late. Look, I look at this Wisconsin team, and I think that it honestly might be the best Wisconsin team since the 2015 team that made it to the Final Four.
Wow. Honestly, I can't disagree with you. I have them losing to Arizona just because I think Arizona's more of a complete basketball team. Nick Boyd, though, with Wisconsin, is one of my favorite players in all of college basketball. One of the most underrated stars. I think him and Darius Acuff is going to be really interesting. But let's get your quick Midwest region thoughts. We got a lot to get through, but I know this one you're excited about.
All right, Midwest.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know I said I didn't love the South.
Okay.
I don't love this one either. This is pretty much full chalk here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that your 6th seed in Tennessee is pretty. Yeah, because I think Tennessee's weak. We saw them lose to Syracuse. They just they don't do it for me. I'm interested to see who's going to win this game. Miami, Ohio, SMU. We're recording as it's going on, but I don't love Alabama as your 4. Texas Tech without JT Toppin as the 5. You're without your best player. I don't know. And Akron's a team that last year a lot of people had winning. Well, they were playing Alabama, and it's really hard to win when you're playing a team that's the same style. Texas Tech is a very slow team. Akron shoots 3s. That's a recipe for an upset, especially when you're without your best player.
Well, look, I got to completely disagree with you here. I actually really like Texas Tech.
But without JT Toppin.
But Anderson is still an exceptional basketball player. I have them going on a little bit. Akron, though, I know people are really high on that 12-5 upset.
Yeah, and I think the 12-5s are not as popular this year, but I see that one this year. What about you?
I'm going a little bit more chalk than you. I don't know what you're talking about. Chalk. You got an 11. You got a 12,
1, 2,
a 9
3,
in there.
4.
Look at this. All right. Either way, we got Michigan, St. Louis, Josh Schertz, beating Georgia, and Mike White. Boo. We got Texas Tech and Alabama, Tennessee, Virginia, and I do have a 10 seed Santa Clara. It's another 10-7 upset facing off against Iowa State. We talk about the Sweet 16 here in Michigan, Texas Tech. I do have them advancing because I do really like the possibility of them winning this game against Alabama, a team that might be playing potentially without its leading scorer in Aiden Holloway. Iowa State, though, and Michigan, I think, are going to face off in the Elite Eight. I know that's a matchup that I'm really excited about, Adam. We talked about Milan Momcilovic and Jaksa Lenborg, 2 of the clear-cut stars in college basketball right now. We watched Momcilovic play against Syracuse in Las Vegas back in November. Not only did he have a dominant full Players Era Invitational back then, and he play well shooting from the stripe just so exceptionally well, but he came out in the second half, boom, 25 points right away. This team can turn it on whenever, and I do think that Michigan, I don't want to give anything away, I do think they will be susceptible for an upset, but I know we got some Final Four talk that we got to talk about.
So here we go. Our Final Four.
Sure.
You take it away first.
All right. Okay, so my Final Four, I have the Florida Gators advancing. No bias, I promise. I got UConn as a 2 seed. They're I think going to come out from that East region, a really tough one with Duke and all these high-level coaches. We got Arizona, the 1 seed, and Iowa State. I do have them defeating the Michigan Wolverines. But when we advance to the championship, ultimately, I do think it's going to be the 1 seeds that take it away. Florida and Arizona. Why? Because in March Madness, defense wins championships. These 2 teams are 2 of the best defensive teams in college basketball. Arizona's proven it all year long. They can win the tough games. But Florida is my back-to-back champion. They're going to win the championship back-to-back times for the 2nd time in this millennium. I do think they do it. Todd Golden has proven to be one of the up-and-coming young coaches in college basketball, and he has 3 bigs with a 4th and Micah Handlogden off the bench who are so good defensively. I think they match up with every single team in their region really well, and they're going to do it against UConn, a revenge game from earlier this season, which they lost by a couple points, and Arizona, which they lost in the season opener. They do it in the championship.
Who would have thought the Florida fan has Florida winning it all? Just like the guy who loves Bruce Pearl thought that Auburn should have been. Let's take a look at my Final Four over here. So, I have Duke, Houston, Wisconsin, Michigan, and then I have Houston and Michigan going to the championship game. And I think that this would be an incredible championship. These are 2 teams that are very physical, very athletic, and I like the Wolverines to win it all. I said it after they won the Players Era in Vegas, after they beat Gonzaga by 30, that it was the best team that I've ever seen, and I think that they were, without a doubt, going to be the national champions. Well, we're almost up here on No Pulp, but when we come back, we've got our final words, our plays of the week. You don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
for the final time this evening, or in your case, the morning before the first round of March Madness. Adam Gotkin, Adam Avin wrapping up shop here on No Pulp. Look, we've talked about so many amazing games, the top players who we're going to be watching over the course of the next couple weeks, Adam, but we got to talk about some of the games we're most excited for that maybe we didn't get to key on in our tournament predictions. So these are my big 3 games that I'm really excited for. Let's start here. Wisconsin and High Point. Look, I really like the Badgers and Nick Boyd. I think they could do it. I know people love a 12-5 upset. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be really exciting. Ohio State, TCU. Bryce Thornton's one of the best players in college basketball. TCU has the wins, though. I think they're a better team. And this one is one I'm really excited for. Brian Hodgson, who is not coming to Syracuse, but he's building something really, really special at South Florida. I think he beats a Cardinals team with Pat Kelsey, who has struggled this year, and I think are seated a little bit too high, maybe more than they probably should.
Alrighty. I like
That's my
this
big
three.
three. What do you think? You like it?
All 3.
3 exciting games. One to look out for. What do you got?
All right, here's mine. Number 1 that I'm looking at, North Carolina VCU. We talked about this earlier. No Caleb Wilson, a VCU team that is very dangerous out of the A-10.
Yeah.
Number 2, Tennessee against whoever the heck they're going to play out of the first 4 games. You'll know right now. We don't know yet because it's probably about halftime.
We'll get word on here in a second.
SMU right now down, so who knows? Either way, though, I think Buki Miller or Miami, Ohio, and that winning team is going to get it done. And in this game, Kentucky has just been kind of iffy all season. And Santa Clara the last couple of years. I mean, they've got NBA talent over the last few years, and it is a program that has really brought up the floor. The 100%. WCC made things a lot more difficult for Gonzaga and for St. Mary's. They almost beat Gonzaga in their conference tournament as well. That was an exciting one. I do think Santa Clara does it. All right, we got our plays of the week leading into March Madness. Now I'm going to start here with a play that got a team into March Madness. Let's talk about the Ivy League in that conference tournament. TJ Power, he's driving down, chucks up a 3. They're down by 3. This one ties at Penn, and Fran McCaffrey returns the Ivy League. He returns to Penn. A clutch 3 that forces overtime, ties it up at 75, and Penn only needed a few more points in overtime to win this game. They really did a good job of holding Yale Ness pretty much scoreless in overtime, and TJ Powers' 3 gets Fran McCaffrey back to March Madness. Super exciting. Yeah, TJ Powers is a stud, and what a story for Fran McCaffrey to go from Iowa to Penn and to make the tournament.
Awesome.
Pretty special.
Awesome. What do you got?
All right, so my play of the week comes from what I had the game of the year, the Big 12 semifinal, Arizona against Iowa State.
There you go.
Jaden Bradley, the Kawhi Leonard-esque fadeaway into the corner.
In his face, too.
Literally, the Kawhi Leonard fadeaway, just unbelievable. I don't know how he perfectly got that swish in, fading away, the high arcing shot. I mean, that is like the most satisfying thing in all of basketball whenever that is perfectly executed. What a shot, what a moment in the Big 12 semifinals as Arizona beat Iowa State.
Super exciting, Adam. Oh my God. But look, we got to talk about how times are changing in college basketball right now. How NIL is fully changing the landscape of what to expect in March Madness. I got to look at my paper because we really need to talk about the top 16 teams and why they are making history in March Madness. They are all 13.5-point favorites heading into the tournament in their first round matchup game. That is something that has never happened before. Why is that interesting? 1 through 16 being so dominant in March, with it just being around the corner, that we talk about madness. Money can translate to winning games. The story of the Cinderella run might not exist anymore due to the fact that some of these teams are so dominant with NIL leading the charge. Indiana came out with a report just a couple weeks ago. It got noticed that they put $32 million into their roster for this year. They didn't make March Madness. The Who's are not dancing in March. And look, that means that money does not 100% equate to winning. However, it is very, very clear that these resources for some of these dominant teams are unlimited, which means the Cinderella run that you and I both love, those high double-digit seeds that make a run every once in a while, it's a sign that they're ending for better or for worse.
All right, so for my final word, I know that this show is no pulp, but I've got a little bit of pulp there behind me right now, so I got to keep it on that and talk about what's going on in Syracuse right now and the fact that the Orange can't even bring in a guy like Brian Hodgson. And now the talk is that it's going to be Jerry McNamara. I love G-Mac. He's a legend. He brought Syracuse to the national championship and stayed for 3 more years. He is a legend of the game. But what? He's won a MAC championship at Siena, That's not enough to then become an ACC head coach. Look at your premier programs like Villanova when they hired Kyle Neptune after Jay Wright retired and were awful, and then they bring in Kevin Willard, a guy who is accomplished, and then they make the tournament right away. Or Virginia, who after Tony Bennett retired had a Ron Sanchez for a year. He was awful, and then they brought in Ryan Odom, and now they're a 3 seed. You have to bring in someone who has pedigree, who has proved that they can win. And boy, Syracuse maybe hiring Jerry McNamara, that is quite scary to me. And honestly, that might be what's making me sick and cough right now because it's making me disgusted.
I completely agree. Certainly a team that is not changing in March for now, but we're getting word as we are taping this show that SMU has tied it with Miami right now.
We got to watch this.
No, we got to leave this show so we can watch and see which teams are going to be playing today in March Madness. For Adam Gotkin, our whole producing crew put on this hour-long March Madness special. I'm Adam Avin saying so long. Can't wait for March Madness. Enjoy all the games they were watching over the next couple weeks, everybody. We'll see you next time.